Welcome to the Hastings Shadmehry Show.
I'm Andee Hastings.
And I'm Mallie Shadmehry.
Together, we own Hastings Shadmehry, an Atlanta-based law firm specializing in family law.
This is a space where we talk all things family law and all topics that touch the area of family law, from divorce to custody to self-growth, personal empowerment, and more. We bring you the truth, from our wolf pack to yours.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hastings Shadmehry Show. I'm Kendall Walker, Client Experience and Marketing Specialist here at Hastings Shadmehry Family Law. I'm also a producer on this podcast, and today I'm here with Andee Hastings.
Hi,
Andee.
Kendall.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm just excited to be here with you.
Me too.
One of my favorite people.
Me? Well, same. Same. We feel the exact same about each other. So for this episode, I'm going to be your host because it's one of two really special episodes that we're going to be bringing you this season. So we've now released about 50 episodes of the podcast. So we consider this the beginning of our second season of the podcast. So we want to introduce now everyone to the partners. And I'll be interviewing Mallie Shadmehry here soon, and I'm very excited about that. And for now, I'm just equally as excited to interview Andee. So, Andee, we got to start first, though, like we always do. Okay. Are you feeling like a warrior or a diplomat today?
Really good question. My answer is different today than it would have been yesterday. I'm definitely feeling like a diplomat today. I've got several mediations for clients coming up in the next few weeks, and wearing my diplomat hat very firmly, trying to help people hopefully get to the end of their road in this so they can move on to their next chapter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm feeling a little bit more like a warrior, actually.
Okay, I want to hear about that.
Well, we just wrapped up our quarterly planning. Yes. And I feel like I tackled it kind of head on, through all the chaos and everything like that. I feel like I came out stronger. And so now, strategy's set, mission accomplished, and ready for the next victory.
You're killing it.
Yeah, like a 3D chess over here. All right. So let's get to you, Andee.
Okay.
All right. So I want to start out with the beginning. Where did you grow up? Where were you raised?
So I was born and raised in Virginia. My dad was in the military. So
Really?
Yes, he was in the Navy, career Navy officer. And so we started out in Virginia Beach area. And I was born in Richmond. I was adopted when I was 1 month old.
Really?
I was. And grew up through the 6th grade in Virginia Beach. And then we moved to Northern Virginia outside of D.C. And then we moved to Georgia. And, of course, during those times, my dad would get stationed somewhere for a year and commute and that kind of thing to try to keep us as stable as possible. But, yes, I'm a Navy brat.
Oh, well, thank him for his service. That's awesome.
He's just a gem. I will tell him you said that.
Oh, what about your mama?
So my mom was a school teacher. They're, of course, both retired now. My mom just celebrated her 80th birthday. Wow. And my dad's about to celebrate his. So, but my mom was a school teacher, and she taught, I want to say for like almost 40 years.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So, and it was something that she could do even when we moved, like the skill set transferred. So it was important to her to, work while we were growing up and stuff. And she did. She made it work.
Yeah? Wow. And I hear there's something kind of funny along those lines of, your mom and her master's, is it? Or her career?
She was a special education teacher. And my mom is just funny. The stories that we have for the funny stuff that she does is just unending. But so when I was in high school, we had moved to Georgia. We moved here between my sophomore and junior years of high school. And my mom was working on her master's thesis in special education. And I was in the 11th grade, junior, and I helped her write her master's thesis as a junior in high school. It was a hoot. This was back, I hate to admit this, we had dot matrix printers and those little computer screens that had like the big box on the back. I don't even know what those are called anymore. So it was like a different world. But yes.
Wow. Talk about brilliant to be able to do that in high school.
Well, I just saw it as a challenge and we got through it.
Wow. Well, I can see how your parents compliment each other and have raised such a wonderful daughter. They should be very proud.
You're so kind. They're wonderful.
Very true. Very true. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about school. Okay. Where did you go for your undergrad?
I went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Okay.
So, yes.
Great school.
I think I was the only person from a high school that went there.
Really?
Which was weird because, at the high school I ended up in here in Georgia, everybody, they had grown up with each other. Mm-hmm. And so there weren't a lot of us that had kind of, come in at odd times or whatever. So a lot of folks stayed in Georgia and went to school, which makes total sense.
Right.
But I guess I was just accustomed to moving, and so I went to North Carolina.
Nice. And then the rest of your schooling. Talk about that.
So after UNC, came back to Georgia, went to law school at UGA, loved it, amazing school. And then while I was in law school, I did an externship in the prosecutorial clinic. So it's where they would place students in different district attorneys' offices for, experience and that sort of thing. So I was in there for 2 years while I was in school, my second and my third years of law school, and then I ended up going to work there when I graduated.
Oh, wow.
But I had my first jury trial the day before my first day of my third year of law school. So I hadn't technically started my third year of law school when I had a jury trial on a DUI. It's crazy.
No way.
The best experience.
Jumping right in.
I know. I loved it.
Oh, my gosh. So what was your kind of original goal after graduating?
I loved being a prosecutor. I had considered either going into a DA's office, going into the FBI, and actually started the process for that. Well, my dad was career military, and so, I had that kind of public service mindset and ended up staying with the DA's office, partially because I had, a bunch of experience there, and also I was 24 and I was afraid I would end up in like Butte, Montana or something. Leave it to your 24-year-old self to come up with the weirdest worst case scenarios. The likelihood was very low, but whatever. I went into the DA's office, loved it, and I was a domestic violence prosecutor. That was back when the Violence Against Women Act was brand new. Wow. And it created a bunch of new positions across the country in different DA's offices for specialized domestic violence prosecutors. And so I was lucky enough to get one of those spots.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. It felt like a coup at the time.
Yeah. Was
excited.
Just because?
It was hard to get jobs in DA's and public defenders' offices at that time. Yeah. And it was very competitive, and I just felt very lucky. But I've been lucky at many steps along the way, not only with the opportunities I've had, but the mentors that I've had. So just try to remain grateful.
Yeah. Let's go into a little bit about the mentors.
Okay.
Then. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to hear a little bit, you had, I hear that you found a really great one. So I'd love to hear more about that.
So my first mentor professionally in law, his name's Cotter Begg, and we are very close right up until this day. And he took me under his wing. He was an assistant DA in our office in Rockdale County, and he took me under his wing and just taught me such incredible fundamentals, not just about being in a courtroom, but how to be a lawyer and a professional. And I know that probably sounds weird, but he's just so special, and he taught me things that to this day affect how I practice law. One of the things he taught me was when you're in trial, when you're in court, you always sit on the edge of your seat. You do not lean back. You do not lounge. You do not get comfortable, because the minute you're comfortable physically, that means you're comfortable mentally, and you need to retire. You're done. It's okay,
Wow.
but you're done.
That's interesting.
You need to be ready. You need to be ready to jump, and and so to this day, when I see people and they're like, doing their whole lean back routine, I'm like, oh,
You should probably retire.
Cotton is not approved. Yeah. But I mean, he carried a U.S. Constitution in the inside pocket of his suit coat every single day.
Oh,
and
wow.
He's special. I could talk about Cotter forever. He's amazing, and he still guides me to this day. I mean, this is 27 years later. Wow. So yeah.
Wow, that's something special.
It really is.
So when did you actually start practicing law?
So 1997 is when I started, and I graduated from law school. I was 24 years old. Wow. Thought I knew everything.
Yep, we all do.
I know, right?
Yep.
And started practicing. That's actually, so like I said, I went to the DA's office, and I have to tell you the story or else I'll forget.
Yes,
So right a year in, I had a case in Superior Court. Because I was domestic violence prosecutor, I appeared in both Superior and state courts. Usually as a prosecutor, you appear in one or the other. State courts are misdemeanors, Superior Courts felonies. Mm-hmm. So I had a case in Superior Court, and before a judge, Sidney Nation, and who was a character.
Really?
Yes. And he was tough as nails on the bench. You better dot your I's, cross your T's, and really, button it up. So anyway, I had brought this case in the Superior Court. I elevated it to a felony family violence battery because these two people had a previous battery between them, and under the law, that made it a family violence felony. So Judge Nation dismissed my case and said that because the previous battery was not called a family violence battery, because that was before the statute calling it family violence, even though it met all of the parameters of being a family violence battery, he said that because it wasn't called that it couldn't be elevated to a felony. And so it's very rare that as a district attorney that you can appeal anything. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't happen. It's usually, defendants are usually the ones to appeal different things that happen. But in this instance, because jeopardy had not attached, because we hadn't had a trial or anything, I appealed it to the Court of Appeals. And my argument basically was public policy, because there was no law on it. And my argument was, you know what, this is a felony because that's the right thing to do. And I really think that that's what the legislature meant when they wrote this statute. Mm-hmm. And I think you should think so too. And so I went into the Court of Appeals, and it's a three panel of judges. And when you go before the Court of Appeals, I was practicing for less than 1 year.
I was going to say you're 24, right? 25, 24.
I think I might have turned 25 like the day before I went actually to argue it.
Wow.
Anyway, so Cotter prepared me for it. We did these like mock moot court things, and he'd like pepper me with all these questions and stuff, just running me through my paces before we went. So I was totally ready, thanks to Cotter. So we get up there, and I've got the panel of judges, and one of the judges asked me, as I started, he could tell I was young, and asked me, where I went to law school, and just trying to, calm my nerves and be kind. Mm-hmm. And I said I went to the University of Georgia School of Law. Mm-hmm. And he goes, there's this dead silence for a second, and we're in a huge Court of Appeals, courtroom, and he goes, "Go dogs, sick 'em, woof, woof, woof," just like that. And I was like, that was one of the most amazing experiences of my whole life. The whole courtroom, because it was packed, because they had arguments back to back, and everyone just started laughing. It was the cutest thing ever.
What a great way to break the ice.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But for my life, obviously, here I am talking about it 27 years later. I never forgot it. So it's just...
I wouldn't either. I'm now not going to either.
It's very rare you get
so
to go
fun.
argue, and, your judge busts out in your little school chant.
Yeah. So how did the case go?
What ended up happening was the Court of Appeals agreed with my argument, and said that it was in public policy for repeat offenders of family violence for their charges to be elevated to a felony, regardless of whether or not the prior charge was called a family violence battery, which was our argument. And so the ruling by Judge Nation was overturned. That leads to a different story. He tried to throw me in jail once because I think he was mad about that, but that's separate. Never a dull moment.
Never.
But so it was overturned, and then because this was such an important aspect of the law and for victims of family violence, the legislature actually went back and rewrote the family violence battery statute
No way.
to clarify that it did not have to be called, and so they changed it in accordance with our case.
Wow.
So
That's really impressive.
So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And a little surreal. I look back at that now and I'm like, I didn't know enough to be scared. Yeah. I was too young.
Goodness,
I just
thrown
went
into the
in,
deep end.
and I was like, we're going to make law because this is the right thing to do.
That is awesome to make that big of a difference too when you're that young. So when did you start your own law firm? Let's talk a little bit about the career progression.
Okay, so I was in the DA's office. I left and went to work in a big firm downtown.
Okay.
Did regular civil litigation for about 3 years. I spent the first year that I was there traveling around the country taking depositions. So, and this is just it's not something that you get to do all the time. So I had, these 3 years in the DA's office, not including when I was in the prosecutorial clinic, just trying cases. Mm-hmm. And then I go to regular civil litigation and I spend a year just taking depositions all the time. And I now know that that's not normal. It seemed completely normal to me at the time. But, a lot of attorneys can go their entire lives and count on both hands how many depositions they take. And so, again, I think it was just luck giving me an opportunity that to really get put through my paces on taking depositions. And then I stayed. I did some Section 1983 work, which is suits against municipalities, and just an array of civil litigation. And then that's when I moved into family law, but not with my own firm yet. That
Okay.
came later. So I transitioned to family law because it seemed like a really good combination of having been a domestic violence prosecutor plus the civil litigation experience. And, family law, there's a lot of courtroom work and activity. Even if it's not a trial, there's a lot of things we have to do in court. And so I was lucky enough to have been given the gifts of that experience, and it translated really well. So I started out in a boutique family law firm and transitioned to another one where I became a partner, again, with some of the most incredible family law attorneys in the country.
So I hear you had also a special mentor in family law.
I did. And so when the firm that I was with before I branched out on my own, it was a firm, it's had a couple of iterations. It was called Warner Mayhew Bates in Nolan, and really unbelievably exemplary family law attorneys, like a brain trust like you wouldn't believe. I worked directly with John Mayhew for the last few years, who I personally, and I'm sure that a lot of people agree with me, is probably one of the most incredible family lawyers in the country. He passed away, unfortunately. He taught me so many things that, I could sit here and do an entire episode on that, but he was brilliant, and he always was looking at family law cases with an eye towards being creative with solutions. If somebody came to him and he's like, I want an answer to this question, and an attorney came back and was like, well, we can't really do that, and he would be like, you need to go back and find the answer I'm looking for. He was really just lovely about it, but it worked. Yeah. And he was so brilliant and had such an incredible reputation that he was really effective in court and taught me. A lot of the way that I practice and approach my cases was from what I learned from John. So it's a gift.
Yeah.
A gift that I just will always be grateful for. And then it was after that I decided to
go out on your own.
Yes. So it took a little while. There was a bit of a progression.
Yeah. And,
I just really wanted to make sure that I'm just somebody who likes to understand every aspect of something. I'm not going to dive in to certain things without knowing all the, facets and parameters.
Right.
So, and one thing they don't teach you in law school is, first of all, they don't teach you how to practice law. That's what you learn when you become a lawyer. It's everybody thinks that's what law school's for.
Yeah.
That's not what it's for, y'all.
I thought that was exactly what it's for.
Everybody thinks it's exactly what it's for, and we can do a whole episode on that. I could
Yeah.
bring in 50,000 lawyers who would say the exact same thing. It teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to analyze problems and issue spot. Practicing law is where you learn how to actually be a lawyer. And nobody teaches you how to run a business, like have a law firm.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just takes time. And, I was lucky enough to be able to learn from some really incredible lawyers, also business people. And I was like a sponge and just soaked it up.
So you were also, though, a guardian ad litem at one point, weren't you?
I am a guardian ad litem.
Right now as
Yes.
well. But so kind of what got you into
So,
that kind of thing?
kind of early on when I transitioned into family law, I not only became certified as a guardian ad litem, but I also became certified as a collaborative divorce lawyer. And it was right around the same time. I just really wanted to expand my horizons as far as what I can do and what services I offer. And, we deal with guardians all the time in cases. I think it's helpful to understand, to learn how to be a guardian so you also understand how to work with guardians in your cases.
Right.
So, and you know this, but guardians are appointed by the court to perform investigations and make recommendations to the court as to what's in the children's best interest in a case. So when you hear people refer to the child's lawyer, that's usually what they're talking about is the guardian ad litem. So it's really important work, and the training is phenomenal. So,
Well, of course, we've got to touch on you're active in animal rescue.
yes.
It's a great subject. So we have to talk about you and your current pack. And, of course, our mascot, Angie. Greatest.
We'll have to share some pictures of him.
Yeah, we do need to share some pictures of Angus.
do.
Everybody would love him.
Everybody does that meets him. He's like the mayor of this
He is.
building.
He marches in here like he owns it, and he's ready to get to work.
Does.
He does.
He does.
He absolutely does.
So yes, I am. I think that there's some part of my personality that I'm a protector. That's why I loved being a prosecutor. It's why I am drawn to family law. It's why I was drawn to animal rescue. I think it's all part of the same DNA sequence in me. But we've worked for years with a rescue called Angels Among Us Pet Rescue. They're an Atlanta-based rescue operation. They're incredible. They do amazing work, and we've worked as fosters since 2013 and have had just an incredible number of amazing fosters helped sweet babies find their forever homes, some of which have been our home.
That's easy to happen.
That's what we call a foster fail. And so we're particularly drawn to the pregnant mommies. So we had one who was pregnant with us and had babies, and then we've had others who had been pregnant. And a lot of times the babies get adopted quickly, but the moms kind of get left behind. And we just have a really soft spot for the moms.
So how many do you have at home right now?
Oh, gosh. 7?
Can you name them all?
Oh, yeah.
I know you can. What are their names?
Oh, my God. Okay, so we have Ronan, Stella, Angus, Seamus, Rory, Gracie. Who am I forgetting? Tommy.
Tommy. You can't forget Tommy.
You cannot forget Tommy.
I love the human names for dogs, too.
Well, so we have a thing in our house. We love to give them, like, strong Irish names.
Love it.
I mean, I'm sure nobody can figure out why. But, so we've got A bunch of little Irish kids.
Yeah.
And Angus is our unofficial mascot, along with Stormy, Mally's baby. They're co-workers. And Angus is an English bulldog and a character. So he comes to work every day, except for today, about which he is none too pleased.
I bet he's not.
No, he's not. But he's always here. Just today was a different day.
You know what I forgot to touch on? And you said something about when you mentioned, Irish names. Don't you speak a couple of languages?
Oh, gosh.
Can you just...
No.
I know. I'm not going to ask you to say anything. I just want to know what languages you speak. So I think it's so interesting.
Well, so this is a little weird. When I went to college, I majored in international studies in Russian. And which it's like, why did you go to law school? You can major in anything and go to law school. And I was just interested in it. And this was at a time when, this was a long time ago, Kendall, okay? The Berlin Wall was coming down, and, we were at the tail end of the Cold War. I'm dating myself when I talk about these things. And so I was just really fascinated with Russian and East European studies. And so that was my focus and my core concentration. So I took 4 years of Russian in college, which is very intensive.
Yeah.
And then I also took 4 years of Spanish because, so much of the world speaks Spanish.
Right.
And it's always good to know a Romance language too.
Right.
And then I also took 2 years of Portuguese just because
You're interested.
I guess I did. But I will tell you, I once went to Rio with a friend of mine. They speak Portuguese there, of course. Mm-hmm. And every time someone spoke to me in Portuguese, my brain translated it into Russian. So, whatever.
Really?
Yes. You're
Very interesting, because it's a very different language, correct?
Completely. Again,
I haven't studied either, but...
Portuguese is like a mix of Spanish and French.
Right.
And Russian is Cyrillic, which is like a mix of Hebrew and Greek. It's totally different. So anyway, random.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I had
that
to
even
touch on-
answered your question.
No, that definitely did. I just had to touch on that because I found it so interesting, and we were talking about, the Irish names and everything. So.
Right. Gotta love a good Irish name.
Yes. A good Irish human name for dog.
Right?
Perfection.
Seamus? Come on.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's perfection. Wow. Thank you so much, Andee. This has been so fun. I've loved learning more about you. You've had a very interesting go at things.
Wow.
And I can understand why you are who you are today, and you've got us to where we are today. So,
Thank you.
It's
You're
very
so
impressive.
sweet. Thanks for
It's the
taking the
truth.
time. Myself, I'm my least favorite subject, so.
Oh, stop. You're my favorite subject. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate you and your attention. Don't forget to find us on Facebook or YouTube, and also on Instagram at Hastings Shadmehry. And give us likes, leave us comments, and we'd love to hear more from you. We also have a new email that you can email us questions, topics to talk about. It's podcast@hsfamilylaw.com. So we will see you next time.
See you next time.
The Hastings Shadmehry Show is a production of Hastings Shadmehry Family Law and 1066 Productions. It is produced by Kendall Walker and Ned Hastings and edited by Ned Hastings.